Hi, I'm Anna Anderson, CEO and founder of the Women in Project Management Network. I'm a project manager by profession, a career coach, a PMP trainer, and a LinkedIn learning instructor. But more importantly, I'm someone who's been in your shoes. Not too long ago, I was filled with doubt, stepping out of my comfort zone and navigating rejection after rejection. It wasn't an easy journey, but through perseverance, hard work, and lessons learned, I finally found my yes. That moment changed everything, not just for me, but for the many people I've since had the privilege to help. I've seen how lives transform when you have the right tools, when you have the right support and encouragement to pursue those six-figure project management roles. On the Project Management Connect show, here I share inspiring stories from project managers who've gone through aspiring to hire. I also bring in industry experts, recruiters, and hiring managers to show us how it's done. Together, we'll explore practical strategies and actionable tips to help you on your journey. So, whether you're just starting out, transitioning into project management, or looking to elevate your project management career, this podcast is for you. If project management feels like your calling, or if you're just exploring, it's time to dive in. So let's get started, fellow project manager. Your journey begins here. Welcome to this week's episode of the Project Manager Connect Show. I'm so excited to have you here today because we are talking about something so many of you have asked me about: interviewing for project manager roles. I know how overwhelming it can feel, from wondering if your resume is good enough to preparing for tough interview questions and just figuring out how to stand out from other candidates. But don't worry, I've got you covered. So in this episode, we're going to talk, or rather walk through the entire interview process, from getting that fast recruiter call to acing the detailed rounds and even just sending that perfect thank you note. So grab your coffee, remove any distractions, grab your tea, your water, and let's get started. By the end of this, I just hope you feel confident and also just ready to tackle your next interview. All right. So before any recruiter calls you, I want you to stay ready and stay organized. So for every role you have applied to, for every role someone has referred you to, for any role that you've reached out to someone, for any role that you've, just applied or done, whatever it is that you've looked at and you feel like you're interested in it, I want you to track it. Write it down. Whether you're tracking it in your notes, a Google folder, Excel, or a tool like maybe Notion or even Teal or Asana, write it down. It's important. Majority of the time, when recruiters find enough candidates for the role, the organization will remove that opportunity from their website and you will not have anything to refer to. So write it down so that you can track it. This is important because it just gives you that opportunity to look at it, to know what exactly is being asked, and also you can stay ready. All right. So the first step is usually that call from a recruiter. This is not a full-blown interview, but it's an important interview because it sets the stage for everything else. So here's the deal. Recruiters are trying to see if you check those basic boxes. Do you have the experience? Do you have the skills that they're looking for? Are you within their budget? Are you a decent communicator? So here's how you prepare. First, reread the job description before the call because it's important. That is if they sent you at least the job description or you have it somewhere. Highlight the skills and responsibilities that they're asking for, like if they want someone experienced with Agile or someone who's led big cross-functional teams. Highlight that information because it's part of their pain points. Second, get your elevator pitch ready. So majority of the time, you'll have this first question. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Anybody who's ever interviewed knows that's always 95% of the time the first question they'll ask you after they've introduced yourself. You guys have exchanged pleasantries. So you don't want to ramble with this question. Here's a simple structure. Start with who you are. All right. So you can use the XYZ format. Just Google's XYZ, tell me about yourself format. And you'll hear it talks about your current, your past, and the future. So start with who you are. I'm a project manager with 8 years of experience leading medium to large size IT projects with budgets over $1 million, medium sized organizations. And then you can mention a key achievement. My most recent project was a digital transformation project with a budget of $2 million, which was delivered 10% under budget and 2 weeks ahead of schedule. You can share what you did prior to that if you'd like to. And then end with why you feel this role excites you. I'm excited about this opportunity because I'm passionate about driving organizational success, and your company's focus on innovation really resonates with me. Okay? Nail this question down. It is important. All right, so now moving on from the telling you about yourself or telling them about yourself, they'll also probably ask about salary expectations and your availability. My advice, do your homework. Check sites like Glassdoor, Comparably, Levels.fyi, Salary.com, Payscale, Built-in, LinkedIn, the company website, and even you can ask them just to figure out what the role might pay. And when you give your answer, always present a range and also keep it flexible. Finally, just don't forget to ask questions too. I know this is just the first interview with the recruiter, but ask questions. Do not say you do not have questions. Ask questions. So something as simple like, what does the hiring timeline look like? This shows you're engaged and also you're thinking ahead. All right. Now, that was a recruiter call. If the recruiter gives you the thumbs up, congratulations. That means you're moving on to the next round, which is usually the hiring manager or maybe a panel interview. Now, this is where things get more serious. They are not just checking if you're qualified, they want to know if you're the right fit for their team and how you handle real project challenges. So think of this as the deep dive into your skills and your experience. It's where the magic happens if you're prepared. So you have to be prepared for this. So let's talk about the hiring manager interview. This is a big one again because this person is probably your future boss or your future manager, or they are at least closely connected to your team. So here's what you can expect. For behavioral questions, they're all about your past experiences. They want to know how you've handled real life scenarios. For example, tell me a time when a project went off track. What did you do? So in this question, you can quickly, or if you're listening clearly, know that they want to hear the past. How did you do that? How did you handle that situation when the project went off track? What did you as a project manager do? So my best advice, use the STAR method. There are tons of methods out there. This is my preferred method. If you want to use another method, that's totally fine. But I prefer this one because this is what I use. This is what I share with the community that I have. So feel free to use it. So here's what it looks like. The situation, S stands for situation. Set the scene. What was happening? The task is the T. So what was your responsibility? The action, what did you do? Be specific. And the result, what was the outcome? Bonus points if you add metrics. So a lot of people always think that each STAR story has to have a metric. Not all of them have a metric behind, but bonus points if you add a metric. For example, let's say they ask you about a project that went off track. You could say something like, we were halfway through a software upgrade when the vendor missed a major milestone. My role as the project manager was to reassess the timeline and communicate the impact to stakeholders. I worked with the vendor to establish a recovery plan, reallocated internal resources to make up lost time, and kept everyone updated through weekly progresses and daily stand-ups. In the end, we launched 2 weeks later than planned, but avoided additional costs. All right, so you can see the story in there. Make this a conversation. Treat it like I've just met you out for coffee and I'm like, hey, tell me about that project that you were telling me about that you're probably going to go late. What happened? And now you're sharing with me how it happened, sharing your story, but utilizing the STAR method. You may also get technical questions. So they may ask you about specific tools or methodologies, something like, how have you used Jira to manage sprints, or what's your approach to risk management? Don't just say, oh, I use Jira. Explain how you've used it to plan, how you've used it to track, and even close out projects. You may also get leadership questions. So be ready to talk about like motivating teams or resolving conflicts. For example, how do you lead teams without having direct authority? I had an amazing conversation with Janani. We talked about leading with our authorities as project managers. That episode, I'm going to link it to the show notes. Please listen to it because it's a very important topic for us as project managers. So you could say something like, I focus on building relationships, clearly communicating the why behind the project, and recognizing team contributions. People are more likely to follow your lead when they feel respected and valued. And at the end, always ask thoughtful questions. One of my favorite questions that I like to ask at the end of any interview, and add this onto your maybe questions that you have ready to ask at the end of the interviews. What does success look like for this role in the first 90 days? It shows you thinking about how you can make an immediate impact within your organization. So sometimes there's an entire round dedicated to situational or behavioral questions. There's some organizations that will say this panel will ask you only situational questions. This panel will ask you only behavioral questions, but I want you to be ready. So those are maybe what if scenarios, questions designed to see just how you think on your feet. Those are also different type of questions. For example, questions like if a sponsor requests a major scope change late in the project, how would you handle it? They want to hear how you'd handle it. And this is just a sample answer how you would handle this situation. This is again a situational question because they're just seeing how you would handle if maybe a major scope change late in the project was to be presented to you as a PM. So acknowledge the impact. First, you'd say things like, I'd assess how the change would affect our timeline, budget, and resources. And then also talk about how you'd communicate. I'd present the options to the sponsor and key stakeholders outlining trade-offs like extended deadlines or having additional costs. Talk about how you'll collaborate. We'd agree on the best path forward, whether it's proceeding with the change or just sticking to the original scope. Here again, it shows that they just want to see what you would do. So talk about that by showing how you'd collaborate, how you'd communicate, and things like that. Okay? My tip, though, I want you to be honest. Be honest, but always frame your answers in a way that shows how you maybe have supported the team, how you help them, make decisions, how you've helped them improve, whatever it is, the scenario or the situation is, make sure that you're honest. All right. Once the interviews are done, don't skip the thank you note. This is a small gesture that can make a big difference. A lot of people forget this step. Sometimes because you're just done with the interview and you're ready to move on. But please send your thank you note. Start with a thank you note, maybe saying something like, thank you for taking the time to meet with me today. Mention something specific. I really enjoyed our conversation about the team's agile transformation and would be excited to contribute to its success. And then reaffirm your interest or reiterate why you would be a great fit for the role. So you could say something like, this role aligns perfectly with my experience and career goals. Again, send your thank you note. Maybe you can add additional things. Maybe, I look forward to working with you, something like that. Okay? Send it within 2 to 24 hours out after your interview. Especially if your interview is on Friday, make sure you send it at least 2 hours after your interview. Or so that it doesn't come to them over the weekend. Okay? Keep it short but meaningful. It's a simple way to remind them why you are going to be a great fit and the right choice for the role. All right, I know we've talked about a lot of things, but to wrap things up, here are a few final tips to help you feel fully prepared for your next interview. So preparation is key. Don't just wing it. If you want a role, you're going to put in the work. So don't just wing it. Do your research on the company, their projects, and their values. Practice your answers and make sure you're familiar with the STAR method for behavioral questions. Confidence is important. Confidence is everything. Remember, they're interviewing you because they already believe you have potential. So own your experience and let your personality shine through. Quantify your results whenever you can. So share those numbers or measurable outcomes to show the impact of your work. For example, instead of just saying, I managed a project successfully, or we were able to complete the project within timeline, within budget, and within cost. That's so generic. Say something like, I led a 3 million IT project that finished 10% under budget within 2 weeks ahead of schedule. Something like that. Don't just make it make sure that it's not generic. Don't skip the follow-up. So a well-written thank you note just shows professionalism and can help you stand out in a competitive market. All right, I know that was a lot, but here's an extra bonus for those of you who made it to the end of this. I've put together a list of 10 behavioral interview questions specifically just for project managers. So these are questions you're likely to hear during the interview, along with tips on how to answer using the STAR method. You can download this resource right here on the episode's show notes. So that's it for today. I hope this episode gave you the confidence and also gave you the clarity you need to ace your next interview. If you found this helpful, I hope you can share it with a friend or colleague who's also job hunting. And don't forget to subscribe to the Project Manager Connect show. All right, thanks for tuning in and good luck. You've got this.